Thanks very much, Dominic, Robert, and to TaxWatch on its 40th anniversary meeting. What a great organization, and I couldn't agree with you more about the importance of the census. And no state is more at risk than Florida from undercounts, and so we need to get there. Robert asked if I would say just a few words about Triumph Gulf Coast. Triumph is the organization established in statute by the Florida legislature in 2013 to distribute the economic damages money that flowed to the state of Florida in the wake of the Deepwater Horizon oil disaster. And so we look at the Deepwater Horizon events, and Judge Barbier signed off with BP on a $19.2 billion settlement way back in 2015 that contained economic damages to the affected states that totaled $5 billion. Florida got 2, Alabama got 1, Louisiana got 1, Mississippi got 1, and of that $2 billion, the Florida legislature fashioned the Gulf Coast Economic Recovery Act, establishing Triumph in statute, which allocated 75% of that money for the economic diversification, recovery, and enhancement of the 8 westernmost Florida counties. So basically from south of Tallahassee over to the Alabama border. Well, I'm here to report, I'm the economic advisor to that organization. I score the project proposals that come in, and I'm here to report that thus far, the 7-person board, and I serve as staff to that board, have given favorable votes to 26 different projects, totaling $237 million. Those $237 million across 26 projects are attracting $642 million in match funding. And when we count the direct jobs, that is before we add the multiplier effect and look at indirect and induced jobs, those projects are going to be responsible for 5,000 jobs in Northwest Florida. And we fund 2 sorts of projects. One is public infrastructure. That is infrastructure awarded to a public entity, a local government, county government, could be a state agency, has to be in the 8 counties, and it has to have a job creation component. The single largest award that's been made is 3 airport hangars. Triumph's share is $66 million for 3 new airport hangars that's going to bring Singapore Technologies, the world's largest maintenance, repair, overhaul, MRO provider, to Northwest Florida. It's part of a $330 million project. So Triumph's $66 million share is going to be responsible for 1,325 direct jobs and almost 5,000 indirect and induced and direct jobs. So that's the kind of good work that's being done. Of course, when there's money on the line, and BP argued to Judge Barbier successfully that we can't pay $19 billion in 1 year, it'll bankrupt us. So it's 15 payments over 18 years. And everybody in this room knows what happens when you have money coming in every year because you're then on the front lines in the legislature, because the legislature can, of course, appropriate that money wherever it darn well pleases. We're lucky to have strong political voices. The current chairman is former Senate President Don Gates. The outgoing Triumph chairman, who's still on the board, is former Speaker Alan Bentz. And so they protect that money and keep the good projects coming. And so public infrastructure, career and professional education, in the line of the CAPE Act, we will have awarded 9,000 industry certs, which we see as a lot of the answer to the questions that have been discussed about expensive education. And those career certs are going to improve the household incomes of Northwest Floridians. So, Robert, are we out of time or 2 minutes? Anybody have any questions about who can apply for Triumph or how it works or any of the good works that we're doing in Northwest Florida? Yes.
Dr. Harper, I have a question. When you're looking at some of the industries that you guys are really wanting to bring back to the area, what do you think the potential is there to maybe bring in some new industries that weren't there previously?
Well, there's a lot of potential. We are considering currently, you may be aware that DHS, Homeland Security, has a lot of activity in Northwest Florida. The Center for Cybersecurity, Computer Security Dominance is located there at Corey Station in Pensacola. And so that's an area that's ripe for new industry certifications for Northwest Floridians who otherwise couldn't pay the $2,000 per certification that it costs them to get that. And in a field where average salaries are pushing $80,000 for people that are relatively new, that's a great field. One of the innovations that's occurring across higher education is that companies, as the information economy gets more and more robust, you no longer have to take it as a sign of someone's potential that they've gotten a degree from a four-year school. That used to be the way that companies made the make or break decision. We think you're going to work out. Instead, now you can look at things like Microsoft certified software engineer or software security compliance person. And so those sorts of certs are becoming more important. They're associated with higher wages, especially in tech fields. And then what we're seeing in an economy where more jobs are at risk of being automated out of existence or sent offshore is that more and more the trades are sources of good business opportunity for people who might not be willing to undertake the high-risk venture of paying high tuition to attend a four-year school over time. And so we're funding things, HVAC certificates, we're for traditional industries, pipe fitters to enable Northwest Florida, which has gotten a great Coast Guard contract for offshore patrol cutters. And so the trades are just as important, and those are some high-earning capabilities. So public infrastructure, career and professional education, send us your projects that you might be aware of. Thank you very much.